So you've just been appointed at your new club. Now what do you do? Let's go through a few steps that'll help you get underway. Hey guys, I'm Aussie Villain and welcome to my Football Manager 22 Getting Started tutorial. We're going to go through all sort of just the basic things if you are new to the game or struggling to get started at the club. Hopefully this will be helpful for you. If it is, make sure you hit the like button to help other people find it, and of course subscribe if you are new. But the first thing that you want to do, you sort of once you get through all the intro screens there, is you'll come in and this is your inbox, and this is sort of one of the first things that you'll see. And it is important to have a look at the club vision and the expectation meetings. So you can see this is with Aston Villa, my personal favourite club, obviously. That's where the Aussie Villain name comes from, in case you were wondering. And now this is important things to note. So don't sign players over the age of 28, play attacking football, sign players under the age of 23 for the first team, play entertaining football. Now, one thing that you will notice, now obviously there's a limit to this, but you can not be as successful maybe in the tournaments here or the competitions, the league or whatever it is that you're competing in for that season. So mid-table is what they want. Now, I could probably just about get away with lower mid-table if I was doing all these things good. So if I was doing these well and maybe not getting the results, as you know, obviously you wouldn't want to be in a relegation battle or getting relegated, but it does buy you a little bit of leeway doing these things well. So you do want to try and you can see here, work within a budget. That is pretty much going to be the case everywhere you go, and sign players to sell for profit. Again, means you're a selling club, and that's going to be the way that it is for most teams that you manage outside of sort of the big boys. So yeah, make sure you're checking this out, and where possible, make sure you're doing what the board want, because it could save you if things don't quite go to plan on the field. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do, obviously, is have a look at the squad and what you've got to work with. Now, I like to make sure that I've organized it based on position, so you can get an idea of how many players you have in each position. Now, the first team, you can see we've got some players out on loan there. Usually, you're not able to call them back. Check, you might be able to in January. Now, if you go to here, it might have, if you can recall them. I'm not loan options. It doesn't look like there is a loan option to recall him. Always check in January though. If you're desperate for players to come back on loan, you might be able to recall them in January, in the January window, but usually that's not the case. But the first team here, obviously, you can see those players there. But one thing you will always want to do, and this is, I'm recording this during the beta, so that's why it says report bug there, which it obviously won't have after the full release. But always go and check your youth teams. Now, there is almost always going to be players down here that are going to be useful for your first team. Now, you probably want to go and have a look at each individual player anyway. But if you want to sort of just get a quick overview, if you go down to reports, you click on that and it'll bring up here and you can see the star rating that the players have. Now you can see that there's quite a little bit of potential in the under 23s. This, I'm not even going to try and say that name. I just know he's going to become a Villa legend and I'm going to want to get that name on a shirt, and it's just not possible. But he looks very, very good indeed. So there's going to be players more times than not that are in the reserves. Maybe the previous manager didn't rate them, but you know, you can have a look at them. There's going to be guys that you can call into the first team that are going to be useful for you. And the under 18s, I always want to go and have a look at these guys as well. Now, what this does, apart from anything else, if you can see here that we have a fairly decent young central midfielder coming through, if you develop him properly, you may not want to go and sign a central midfielder. You may want to look at other positions because, you know, in 3, 4, 5 years' time, you know that you've got a good one coming through. So you might go and sign a player that is coming towards the end, sort of maybe 26, 20, not coming 26, 27 is coming towards the end, but so that when they're getting into their 30s and you might want to try and cash in on them, then you've got your kid coming through from the academy. So always make sure when you're checking your squad, you go and check the youth teams as well, the reserves, whatever the situation is at the club, because there's usually somebody of use there. Now, next thing I always think you want to do is go and check the staff. Now, you can see it's a tab down the side there. You just want to make sure that as much as possible you filled up all the positions. It may be that you don't want a technical director or you don't want a director of football. I always think it's worthwhile getting them in, and especially if you have the money that you can afford it, and I'll show you whether you check the finances in a second to see if you can afford it. But things like physios, always want to max those out with as best physios as you can. Sports scientists, performance analysts, I'm not completely convinced that they make a big difference, to be honest, but they're in the game for a reason, so always try and get the best ones you can. Same with recruitment analysts. But yeah, just make sure that that you're doing this. And I always think it's worthwhile doing it at the beginning of every season, not just your first season, because sometimes through the summer, and I've missed it before, the board will give you extra positions, so you might get extra coaches, and it's just good to know that they're definitely always filled up. And you can do the same thing for the youth team. Now, to check that, development center, staff, and you can check your staff for the under 18s and the under 23s, or again, whatever the situation may be. Obviously, there's no scouts just for the youth teams. Those are only for the first team. Next up, finances. Definitely want to check the finances, see what you're working with. It's usually the first thing you go and look, especially if you're Newcastle manager, see exactly what you're working with. So Villa has £20 million to spend. Now, one thing that you do want to check as well is the transfer revenue, how much is made available to you. Now, 100% very gracefully has been made available by the Villa chairman. What you want to make sure is that if to say this is 10% or 0%, I've been at clubs like that before, that just means you may not want to cash in on a star player to rebuild the squad because you're not getting, say, for example, if we had 10%, we'd sold Grealish for 100 million. We're not going to get 100 million to spend. We're going to get 10 million to spend. So if you had a choice, you maybe wouldn't cash in on Grealish to rebuild the squad because it's not going to be worth it. So always just make sure you check that there and make sure that you are getting as close to 100% as you can. Wage budgets here as well. You can see Villa still has a little bit of wiggle room, but you just want to make sure that we'll see how you're going with that. And you may want to look to cash in on some players, and we'll show you how to do that in just a second. And if you want to try and increase the percentage here, the way you do that is you would make board request. It's under finances. Obviously, we can't do it because we've already got 100%, but it would be just in there. That's where you would find to make that request. So I mentioned about player contracts. This is why you want to check that. You go back to this screen, go down to contract, and you can search for this particular purpose on wage, and you can see the guys that are on the highest money. Now, there always is players that are, especially in the past at Villa, but there's always guys that you just think you're not worth that. Let's try and move you on. So this is. If you want to make a little bit of room in the wage budget, then this is a very good way to do it. This is almost more so than what the player's transfer value is. What you can get off the wage budget is useful as well. So you can see there what players are on, and this is where if you go and check your youth teams, if we go back to development center and the under 23s, for example, we want to go to squad, and if we click onto contracts, is there anybody there? Sometimes you find guys that are on a lot of money in your reserve squad, but it doesn't look like that's the case here necessarily. So yeah, always worth checking that. And another way that you can increase the wage budget as well, if you go to make budget adjustments, we can take money out of the wage budget. But usually what you can do is this is scrollable, and if you take money out of the wage budget, it'll go into the transfer budget and vice versa as well. So that's a way to sort of move the money that you have to work with around. And then obviously at some point you're going to need to get a tactic together, and you can see here that there's the little tutorial thing you can go through. I've played for too many years, so I don't necessarily need that. I always like controlled possession. I usually fade away from that, but choose the way you want to play, and then you can see here that it brings up the different options. So we'll just confirm that. It'll bring up this screen for us, and then you can start sort of moving players into the positions that you want them to play. And this is where it will become obvious where you have too many players for certain positions, where you don't have enough players for certain positions. And this is when you can really start and move around in the transfer market and see exactly what it is that you need. Marvelous Nakemba. I've always wanted to see how Football Manager rated him. Not too bad. So that is how you would set up a tactic. I'm going to do a separate tutorial for tactics. So keep an eye out for that, and then you can sort of play around with how you want to play. But again, I'll cover all of that sort of stuff in a separate tutorial just based on the tactics. So next thing you want to do is you're going to need to set up a preseason, get some friendlies going. Now I always think somewhere between 6 to 8 friendlies is where you want to try and find a sweet spot. So to arrange a friendly, and again I'll do a separate tutorial on preseasons, but you click the arrange friendly thing there. Now where's the Premier League season start? I always think that you want to give yourself a free week beforehand, but what you can do is maybe have a friendly, say on the Tuesday, for if you've got a rough idea what your first 11 is going to be, then anybody else that's not in that first 11 that just needs to get a bit of fitness in, then you could maybe do that. And we could probably, if you've got one there, we could probably get away with a friendly in between the two there. Although that's a cup game, so we'll have a second leg set, a semi-final or a final of that. So somewhere in there, and then just confirm the friendly once you've found yourself an opponent. Where do we do it? There it is there. So who wants to give us a game? I don't like playing foreign domestic teams because that's boring. So let's go with Borussia Dortmund, and that would be the friendly that we would set up. Yes, I usually think 6 to 8 friendlies just to make sure everybody has as much match fitness as possible before the league season starts. And one final thing I always think you want to do when you first take over is go and have a look at the facilities. Now that is under the club info tab here on the left hand side, up to facilities. And what you want to check is the training facilities and your youth recruitment side of things. So state of the art senior facilities. We have superb youth facilities. That means that can be upgraded, and then we have the good academy coaching, excellent youth recruitment. So those could both be improved. I think excellent can be improved upon. So the way that you want to do this is you go to Club Vision, you go to this, and then facilities, and you can see there we can improve the youth facilities. If you want to improve junior coaching, which you always do, it just means you get better quality youngsters coming through your youth intakes. So you do that there, and then the can improve youth recruitment. And that is there. Now, under 19 team, that's new. I'll have to have a look and see what that is. Now, what does the youth recruitment, I think, gives you better players now, and youth coaching gives you better potential players, or it's vice versa. They mean one or the other. I can't remember which way it is around, but one of them gives you better youngsters now when they come in, and one it gives you basically better potential. So I always try and do them both anyway. I don't know why you wouldn't try to do both of them, because you want better players now and in the future, don't you? But that just about wraps us up here. If you've enjoyed this, if you found that helpful, make sure you hit like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And I will be back. There will be many tutorials coming up of sort of more specialized and just a general overview here. And there'll be some Let's Plays as well. We're going to be trying to win the Champions League with Queen of the South and many, many other things that I'm still trying to decide exactly what we're going to do. But there will be a lot of Football Manager. It is my favorite game. So until next time, guys, I've been Aussie Villain. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.